The camera glides low over the savanna, skimming just above an ocean of golden blades. At first glance, the grass seems ordinary, static, quiet, waving softly in the wind like a sea frozen mid-swell. But what appears to be a passive background is, in truth, the very heartbeat of this ecosystem. Grass is not just the setting, it is the plot. It is the sustainer, the sculptor, and often the silent assassin. Across the African grasslands, whether it's the Serengeti's rolling plains, the flood-soaked Okavango, or the highland meadows of Ethiopia, this vegetation dominates. Unlike the towering drama of rainforests or the silent hostility of deserts, grasslands conceal their complexity beneath repetition. They may look uniform, but every inch of ground supports a dynamic survival web. The dominant grasses, species like red oatgrass and speargrass, are not passive food sources, but aggressive colonizers. They crowd out competitors with chemical warfare, releasing compounds that inhibit the growth of other plants. Some regenerate within days of being grazed, equipped with basal meristems, growth points tucked safely below ground where teeth and fire cannot reach. As herds move across the land, it's the grass that dictates their rhythm. Wildebeest and zebra migrations don't follow rivers. They follow blades. Nutrient-rich fresh growth after the rains lures millions of hooves. But what triggers that growth? Grazing itself. Grazing animals trample and chew, disturbing the soil, clearing away dead matter, and allowing sunlight to strike the base. Some species even stimulate regrowth chemically. Their saliva carries enzymes that interact with the plant's biology, spurring it to regrow more quickly. It's a cycle so intricate, the grazers are both consumer and gardener. Beneath the surface, the roots of these grasses run deep. In the dry season, when the landscape cracks and browns, it's not death that grips the plains, but a pause. The grass is still alive, its core energy hidden underground. Some root systems stretch meters deep, tapping hidden moisture reserves. In fact, up to 80% of the biomass in grasslands can be underground. Networks of roots, rhizomes, fungi, and microbes forming one of the largest carbon stores on Earth. It's a system built not just for survival, but endurance. For the animals that rely on it, grass is more than food. It's shelter, concealment, and nursery. Ground-nesting birds like the black-bellied bustard vanish completely in patches just 30 centimeters high. Their eggs mimic the color of surrounding seed heads. Even predators exploit the grass's camouflage. Lions crouch low, their golden coats indistinguishable from the waving stems, using stillness and patience as their primary weapons. They don't need a forest to hide. They need just enough grass to blur the line between predator and plain. Termites take the role of architects in this landscape. They feed on dead grass and convert it into massive underground fortresses that aerate the soil. These structures help redistribute moisture and nutrients, improving the conditions for grass growth in the dry season. In turn, the grass feeds grazing herds, whose dung then nourishes the soil, which once again feeds the termites. Each link in the cycle is both consumer and contributor. The power of fire in this environment cannot be overstated. Grasslands burn, frequently and violently. Lightning ignites them, and sometimes even people, as part of traditional land management. But this isn't destruction, it's renewal. Grass evolved with fire. Its subterranean meristems remain untouched as flames sweep the land, clearing away woody shrubs and reinvigorating the soil. Within days, green shoots emerge from blackened earth, more nutrient-rich than before. Many grazing animals actually prefer post-fire grass. It is softer, richer in nitrogen, and easier to digest. The visibility of the grasslands is deceptive. What seems like exposure is often advantage. The openness allows for wide-angle vigilance. Herd animals can see threats coming and coordinate responses. The grass becomes part of the sensory system, not just hiding things but revealing them. A single blade twitching against the wind's direction can signal a predator's passage. Elephants often lift their trunks and test the air not just for smell, but to read the turbulence, detecting movements in the grass even kilometers away. Not all grasses are created equal. Some are soft and palatable, others tough, spiny, even toxic. Cape buffalo can chew through coarse thatch grasses that other species avoid, using their massive molars and gut flora to digest fiber that would cripple a zebra. Giraffes, despite being browsers, will sometimes sweep through grasslands dotted with low acacia, further emphasizing the blurry edge between grazer and browser in these hybrid habitats. Resource flexibility becomes a survival skill. What grass doesn't kill, it often challenges. Its growth is relentless and competitive. If left unchecked, it can choke out waterholes, overgrow nesting grounds, and reduce visibility for both hunter and hunted. In the wet season, the grass becomes so thick and tall that even elephants vanish from sight. Newborn antelopes are hidden within it, but so are snakes and leopards. Movement becomes guesswork. Footfalls must be cautious. A wrong step may land on a puff adder or disturb a swarm of biting ants. The seasonal shift in grassland structure drives behavior at every level. During the dry season, grass recedes into sparse tufts, opening the landscape to long-range chases. This is when cheetahs thrive. Their prey has fewer places to hide. In the wet season, ambush becomes dominant. Lions and leopards take advantage of reduced visibility, and even crocodiles leave the rivers to hide in flooded fields, striking at unsuspecting grazers. And then there's the impact on water. Grass holds moisture, not just in its tissues, but in the soil it protects. Its root systems reduce erosion, retain nutrients, and slow down runoff. When herds trample the vegetation down near seasonal waterholes, the bare soil hardens, reducing infiltration. Water begins to vanish faster. The grass doesn't just feed life, it controls its hydration schedule. Perhaps the most overlooked feature of grass is its evolutionary persistence. It predates most of the animals that eat it. Grasses date back over 50 million years, and their spread helped shape the hooves, jaws, and digestive systems of modern herbivores. The flat molars of zebras, the complex stomachs of antelope, the sheer bulk of elephants, all are answers to the challenge of converting cellulose into energy. Even humans, long before agriculture, relied on grass seeds and grains as staple foragers on ancient savannas. And yet, despite its dominance, grass is vulnerable. Overgrazing, desertification, and human development can unravel the tight cycles that make these ecosystems work. Remove too many grazers, and the grass becomes brittle, overgrown, and fire-prone. Fence too many pathways and migrations collapse, starving both animals and the soil they enrich. Protect the grass, and you protect the entire system. In the end, this unassuming plant is the quiet sovereign of the plains. Every predator, every prey, every nest, every carcass, every chase and migration, it all begins and ends with the grass. It may not roar or charge or leap, but its influence is total. In the grasslands, survival is not about domination. It's about harmony with a force so constant, so essential, it's almost invisible. Beneath the endless plains, where the sunlight bakes the soil into cracked plates and lion shadows glide silently across the grass, there is another world, cooler, quieter, and entirely hidden. Here, beneath the hooves and paws of Africa's most iconic predators, a parallel civilization hums with activity. The surface may belong to the fast and the strong, but the underground belongs to the strategic and the patient. Burrowing animals are among the savanna's most underrated engineers. Their presence often goes unnoticed, not because they're rare, but because their genius lies in invisibility. On the surface, one might see only a faint mound or a circle of disturbed earth. But below that modest entry lies a complex network of tunnels, rooms, and escape routes that rival the architecture of cities. For species like meerkats, ground squirrels, and mole rats, the burrow is not just shelter. It's a fortress, a nursery, a food bank, and sometimes a trap for the unwary. A meerkat colony is perhaps the most familiar example, but the familiarity belies the intricacy of their system. A single group, or mob, can maintain dozens of entrances across a territory the size of several football fields. Each tunnel spirals downward, branching into chambers carved specifically for sleeping, giving birth, and even sentry stations near openings. These animals don't dig randomly, they sculpt. Meerkats use their long, curved claws to shift loose soil, but it's their coordination that impresses most. While one group excavates, others keep watch, alert to predators above. These colonies may support up to 40 individuals, each contributing to maintenance and defense, and many of the tunnels are decades old, handed down like heirlooms from generation to generation. In the heat of the day, when the surface can exceed 40 Celsius, these burrows remain remarkably temperate. The deeper chambers stay at a near constant 25 degrees, protected from the punishing sun and sudden rains. This thermal stability is not incidental. The insulation allows animals to regulate their body temperature, reduce water loss, and avoid heat stress. It's not only the coolness that matters, but also the oxygen flow. Burrows are designed to ventilate naturally, with certain holes acting as chimneys and others as inlets. Air rises as it heats, creating a circulation system that continuously flushes stale air from the deepest chambers. In contrast to the social complexity of meerkats, the naked mole rat system is starkly different, and in some ways even more impressive. These odd, near-blind rodents build tunnel systems that can stretch for kilometers, all while living in complete darkness. What makes them extraordinary is not just the size of their underground networks, but the way they are organized. Naked mole rats live in eusocial colonies, like ants or bees, with a single breeding queen and a rigid caste system. Workers dig and maintain the tunnels, soldiers guard the entrance, and only a select few are allowed to reproduce. This is extremely rare among mammals. Their tunnels serve multiple roles. Foraging galleries near the surface allow them to find tubers and roots without exposing themselves, while deeper tunnels offer safe sleeping zones. Interestingly, naked mole rats don't hoard food in one place. Instead, they eat their way through large tubers, returning multiple times to feed while keeping the food source alive, allowing it to regrow. It's a slow-motion farming technique, one that maximizes energy efficiency and sustainability. And because they live in low-oxygen environments, mole rats have evolved extraordinary resistance to suffocation. Their blood binds oxygen more effectively than most mammals, and they can survive conditions that would kill a mouse in minutes. Ground squirrels, another key player in the underground economy, offer a different story again. These rodents are less centralized than meerkats, but still highly social. Their burrows are typically clustered in colonies, with each family maintaining its own territory but sharing communal alert systems. When a predator approaches, say a martial eagle circling overhead, the entire colony can vanish underground within seconds. Burrows have multiple exits, often positioned to provide escape from different directions. The structure isn't just about concealment, it's about options. In a landscape where speed equals survival, the ability to vanish in any direction can mean the difference between life and death. Some predators have learned to exploit these systems. Snakes, particularly puff adders and sand boas, will often enter burrows in search of eggs or newborns. But burrow design factors in this risk. Meerkat and mongoose tunnels often feature narrow choke points and dead ends that give residents a tactical advantage. In some cases, families will abandon compromised tunnels and dig new ones, sometimes overnight. The soil may look dry and uniform, but experienced diggers can detect softer patches that signal easier excavation or better drainage. Even rainfall is accounted for. Many burrows are angled or tiered to allow water to run off rather than pool. The presence of burrowing animals also transforms the entire ecosystem. Their digging aerates the soil, bringing nutrients closer to the surface and helping plant life flourish. Their feces, deposited in hidden latrines, fertilize surrounding grasses. Predators are drawn to areas with burrow networks not just for prey, but because the microhabitats support insects, reptiles, and even scavenging birds. In a strange twist, abandoned burrows often become homes for completely different species, bat-eared foxes, porcupines, or even jackals. But living underground comes at a cost. Vision, for one, is often sacrificed. Many burrowing animals rely more on touch, scent, and vibration than sight. Meerkats buck this trend somewhat, with excellent vision for both digging and scanning the sky, but mole rats have nearly regressed their eyesight altogether. In exchange, they gain tools better suited for their world. Powerful jaws for tunneling, hypersensitive hairs that detect air movement, and the ability to communicate through seismic vibrations. Some mole rats bang their heads against tunnel walls to send coded signals through the soil, an adaptation nearly unheard of in other mammals. The ecosystem above is loud, fast, and violent. Hunts are often decided in seconds, but below, time slows. Underground societies operate on persistence and planning. There are no ambushes, no last-minute sprints. Instead, survival comes from foresight. A meerkat mother gives birth in a chamber she helped dig months before. A mole rat colony feeds on a tuber it discovered seasons ago. A squirrel family expands a tunnel to avoid a predator that hasn't yet arrived, but might. Occasionally, these two worlds collide. A collapsing burrow can strand animals in the open. Flash floods, particularly at the onset of the wet season, can inundate entire tunnel networks. Meerkats may be forced to evacuate pups and seek temporary shelter. Snakes may be flushed out alongside their prey. And in rare instances, predators like honey badgers or aardwolves will dig into tunnels directly, sniffing out the exact chambers where their prey is hiding. But even these invasions are often unsuccessful. For every entrance breached, there's an exit unseen. Escape is built into the design. Perhaps the most striking aspect of this hidden world is how essential it is to the survival of the entire grassland ecosystem. These animals don't just avoid predators. They redistribute nutrients, shape plant growth, and maintain the very soil that feeds the plains. The architecture they create beneath our feet is invisible, but its effects ripple across the surface. It is easy to overlook what lies below when attention is drawn to the spectacle above. Lions hunting buffalo, cheetahs sprinting after gazelles, elephants forging migration paths. But in the quiet dark, the architects of the earth are just as busy. The survival of entire species depends not only on speed or strength, but on the strength of soil, the angle of a tunnel, and the silent cooperation of creatures who will never be seen unless one stops and looks down. Across the wide, exposed plains, where shade is a luxury and concealment is nearly impossible, survival takes on a different shape. There are no dense forests to vanish into, no rocks to dart behind, and only the low, rustling veil of grass between predator and prey. In this unrelenting openness, the rules are simple but unforgiving. To survive, you must see first. And just as critically, you must be heard. The grassland is not silent. It's a world of constant communication, though not in words or cries of aggression. It hums with coded warnings, urgent body language, and instinctive choreography. From the low, repetitive chirp of a rodent perched upright to the sudden stutter flight of a startled bird, information moves faster than any predator can run. These plains are patrolled not just by lions or cheetahs, but by watchers, dedicated sentinels, often small and unassuming, who make their living by noticing things early and broadcasting what they see. A group of impala grazes near a stand of acacia, seemingly at peace. But one female stands motionless, head high, ears pivoting like independent dishes. She's not feeding, she's not socializing, she's on duty. Among many prey species, such roles rotate, temporary watchers who elevate the herd's collective awareness. While others graze or rest, the sentry scans. Her nostrils flare slightly, catching a whiff of something she can't yet identify. Then, without moving her body, she flicks her tail, a subtle twitch, invisible unless you know to look. Nearby, a few heads rise, then more. Within seconds, dozens of impalas freeze into statues. A predator hasn't struck yet, but its approach has already been marked. These signalers don't always know what they're warning about. Sometimes it's a false alarm, wind rustling the wrong direction or a bird's shadow misread. But the cost of overreaction is far lower than the price of ignoring danger. This built-in alertness is what allows prey animals to survive where hiding is no longer an option. Their defense is awareness. Their weapon is time. Some of the most sophisticated sentries in the savanna aren't mammals at all. The southern ground hornbill, a large black bird with a crimson throat patch, spends its life striding through the grasslands in family groups. As they search for insects and small reptiles, they also watch the sky. Their eyesight rivals that of hawks. When they detect a raptor, say a martial eagle cruising silently overhead, they let out a distinctive, throaty, booming call. This doesn't just alert their own kin. Other species listen too. Birds like oxpeckers also serve unexpected roles in this network. Known mostly for pecking parasites off large mammals, they are also acute sentinels. An oxpecker on a zebra will let out a shrill hiss when it senses danger, causing the zebra to twitch, reposition, or bolt. In many ways, these birds become early warning appendages, mobile sensors attached to larger bodies. Some antelope seem to prefer herding near species that attract oxpeckers, benefiting indirectly from this avian alarm system. It's a subtle form of alliance, not through affection, but through practical risk reduction. Rodents, too, are more than just prey. They're broadcasters. In colonies of African ground squirrels or mongoose, vocalizations function like radio stations. A high-pitched whistle means a predator from the air. A guttural chatter suggests something is approaching from the ground. What's remarkable is that these calls are often species-specific, but widely understood. A mongoose will heed the warning call of a squirrel. A hornbill may lift off at the bark of a baboon. The savanna has no formal language, yet its inhabitants have built an acoustic web of mutual survival. Some of the most studied examples of this come from the dwarf mongoose and the fork-tailed drongo. These two species often forage together. The drongo, a clever black songbird, perches above while the mongooses dig below. When the drongo spots danger, it gives a genuine alarm call, saving the mongooses from ambush. But it's not always altruistic. In some cases, the drongo gives a false alarm call just after a mongoose uncovers a large insect or lizard, scaring it away and swooping down to steal the prize. This is more than instinct. It's calculated deception, a glimpse into how complex and manipulative survival communication can be. Interestingly, not all prey species contribute equally to the communal radar. Some are more passive, eavesdropping on the signals of others without adding to the system. These free riders exploit the vigilance of others. Topi antelope, for example, are known for their exceptional vision and ability to detect movement at long distances. Smaller antelope like steenbok or duiker will often linger near topi herds, letting them do the watching while they conserve energy. It's a delicate balance. Too many free riders and the system collapses. But in moderation, these one-way arrangements are another piece of the survival puzzle. The mechanisms of alarm are not limited to sound. Body language plays an enormous role in the grasslands, especially among herd species. A zebra raising its head sharply and orienting its ears can trigger a wave of mimicry through the group, each animal echoing the posture until the entire herd is alert and facing the same direction. This is known as social amplification. The same occurs in wildebeest, where a single animal's startle can cascade into a stampede of hundreds, even if only one actually saw the threat. Predators understand this system and sometimes try to beat it. Lions, for example, often approach from downwind and freeze entirely when they sense they've been noticed. They may crouch in the grass for 10 minutes, waiting for the prey's alarm to wear off. They rely on doubt, hoping the animals will convince themselves it was nothing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the fact that lions must hunt around the watchfulness of their prey shows just how effective this early warning network is. Perhaps the most critical value of this vigilance lies in what biologists call distributed cognition. A single animal cannot maintain constant awareness, but a group can. Each individual contributes a portion of the surveillance burden. This allows animals to lower their own stress levels and metabolic costs. Studies have shown that in groups with reliable sentinels, animals feed more, sleep more deeply, and grow faster. Vigilance is not just a survival tactic, it's a foundation for thriving. In times of drought or pressure, when food is scarce and animals are forced into tighter clusters, the alarm system becomes denser and more responsive. Mixed species herds become more common, and the fusion of different signals enhances overall awareness. A giraffe might detect a lion from a kilometer away. An impala might sense that giraffes change in posture. A warthog nearby, noticing the impala freeze, might rush to its burrow. Information moves diagonally across species and intentions faster than any single brain could manage. It's a system built not on hierarchy, but on shared consequences. No one animal benefits from being the only one to notice danger, because that animal will likely be the first to die. In the grasslands, information is life, and sharing it is instinct. There are no secrets on the savanna for long. Eyes are everywhere, ears constantly scanning, and even the soil carries tremors that sensitive feet can feel. In this open world, where hiding is rarely an option, the watchful live longer. Not because they are faster or stronger, but because they are connected to each other, to the land, and to the intricate, invisible network of vigilance that binds the ecosystem together. At first light, the savanna appears still. The horizon glows in a dull haze, casting long shadows through the silver-tinged grass. Dew clings to every blade, catching the pale amber hue of morning as the wind sweeps gently across the plains. But this tranquility is deceptive. The field of view, seemingly empty, is in fact a layered illusion. Every tuft of grass, every bare patch of soil, may conceal a life clinging to survival by remaining unseen. Camouflage is not a strategy exclusive to predators or prey, it is a requirement for both. The openness of the grasslands imposes a unique constraint. Here, the absence of dense cover forces evolution to lean heavily on illusion. Across this wide visible terrain, the most critical defense is to avoid being recognized at all. A newborn Thompson's gazelle lies motionless beneath a tangle of grass no taller than a human knee. Its coat, dappled in soft tan and broken white patterns, mirrors the texture and color of the earth beneath it. It does not blink. It does not twitch. The mother has moved on, grazing in wide arcs a few hundred meters away, deliberately distancing herself to draw attention away from her offspring. The fawn, less than a day old, is not yet fast enough to outrun even a jackal. Its only chance lies in the hope that nothing sees it, because the moment it's spotted, the game is over. This stillness is more than instinct. It's precision behavior sculpted by survival pressure. Gazelle fawns can remain completely motionless for over an hour, suppressing involuntary movements and even heart rate when danger is close. If a predator passes within a few meters and doesn't look directly at it, the disguise often holds. The margin for error is razor thin. Studies have shown that even the movement of a single ear flicking at a fly can trigger a fatal chain of recognition. Invisibility is not partial. It is all or nothing. Birds have taken this strategy to architectural levels. Among the grass stems, many species craft nests that mimic their surroundings so perfectly that even trained researchers miss them. The blacksmith lapwing, for example, lays eggs directly on open ground, choosing pebbled areas where the speckled color of the eggs matches the terrain exactly. Some eggs are so finely camouflaged that they appear like loose stones until they shift slightly. Other species, like the African cuckoo, exploit camouflage in a different way: mimicry. The cuckoo lays eggs that resemble those of its host species, tricking other birds into raising its young while it vanishes into the landscape. Camouflage does not belong only to the vulnerable. Predators have evolved their own forms of deception. Lions are textbook examples. Their tawny fur fades seamlessly into the yellow-brown grasses of the dry season. But this visual match alone is not enough. The behavior is critical. Lions move when the grass sways, halt when the wind stills, and use shadows not just to hide but to break up their shape. Their success depends on reducing their outline to nothing more than a ripple in the scenery. Cheetahs, though known for their speed, rely first on remaining undetected. They get close, sometimes within 20 meters, before initiating a sprint. To do this, they crouch impossibly low, belly brushing the ground, tail balanced straight behind them. The black tear lines on their face serve a dual purpose, reducing glare and breaking the symmetry of their head to confuse recognition. From a distance, they appear like elongated shadows rather than living creatures. Even smaller predators participate in this visual deception. The serval, a lithe and solitary hunter of rodents and birds, sports a coat dotted with high-contrast spots and stripes. This disruptive coloration works best in the mixed light of dawn and dusk, where long grasses create fragmented shade. Its method is a slow, creeping stalk, head bobbing slightly as it triangulates the position of prey hidden under grass. Its camouflage is not just in appearance but in movement style, a fluid, gliding step that avoids jerky or noticeable patterns. Some insects have taken mimicry to astonishing levels. The mantid fly, for example, mimics the look and motion of ants, avoiding predators that prefer to avoid biting the aggressive and chemical-laden formicids. Certain locust species remain a dull brown while they are solitary, but change color and behavior when they enter gregarious swarms, signaling to each other and overwhelming predators by sheer mass rather than subtlety. But during the solitary phase, the disguise is critical. One locust alone cannot afford to be seen. Ironically, mimicry can also be used offensively. The African slender mongoose sometimes adopts the tail-flagging behavior of the white-tailed mongoose, which predators avoid due to its fierce defensive aggression. In this way, the slender mongoose gains a protective halo by impersonating a less vulnerable cousin. Though the two species are separate, the confusion buys time and reduces risk, evolution leveraging impersonation to manipulate perception. Some disguises don't rely on looking like the environment at all. Instead, they aim to resemble something dangerous. Certain caterpillars, often hunted by birds, have evolved markings that resemble snake eyes. When threatened, they rear up and display these patterns, mimicking the posture and appearance of a small viper. This tactic buys them a crucial moment, triggering hesitation in a predator that might otherwise strike without thought. Among the most fascinating uses of camouflage are decoy behaviors designed to mislead the observer entirely. The black-winged lapwing, when its nest is approached, will feign a broken wing and limp away, drawing attention to itself and away from its eggs. This is not random distraction. The bird calibrates its distance carefully, close enough to remain interesting to a predator, far enough to remain safe. Once the intruder is far enough from the nest, the bird recovers and flies off. The illusion is dropped the moment it is no longer needed. Even the time of day matters. In the low-angle light of dawn and dusk, shadows become longer and contrast intensifies. Some animals exploit this to vanish more effectively. Predators time their hunts to align with these hours, not just for cooler temperatures, but because the interplay of light and motion creates a moving mask. Zebras, often thought of as highly visible with their black and white stripes, actually benefit from this illusion in motion. In groups, their stripes create visual confusion, what researchers call motion dazzle. A predator fixated on one target may lose track as stripes shift and overlap chaotically. The savanna's illusionists are not performing for entertainment. Their tricks are honed through pressure and pain, failures and narrow escapes. Every generation lost to a keener-eyed predator tightens the design. Camouflage is not just a color pattern, it's a system of behaviors, movements, postures and decisions that all reinforce the illusion. To be effective, the animal must behave as though it truly is what it pretends to be. Disguise in these grasslands is the currency of survival. It is how the fragile hide in plain sight, how the powerful close distance without being noticed, and how entire species maintain existence without spectacle. In a world where every movement may trigger a chase, and every glimpse may signal death, the advantage lies not in being fast, loud or strong, but in never being seen at all. From a distance, the great herds of East Africa appear like a slow-moving tide, rippling across the open savanna in endless motion. Dust rises gently from beneath their hooves, softening the horizon, while the sun burns low and flat in the sky. But step into the middle of this migration, and the rhythm changes completely. What seems calm from afar is a controlled chaos of instinct, momentum, and split-second decisions. In the grasslands, survival isn't just about numbers. It's about how those numbers move, think, and adapt together. Wildebeest are the architects of this moving mass. Over 1.5 million of them form the core of the Great Migration in the Serengeti Mara ecosystem, joined by hundreds of thousands of zebras and gazelles. Their journey is not a straight line. It's a loop, triggered by rainfall, dictated by regrowth, and refined by generations of learned behavior. But the success of this movement depends on more than geography. It hinges on spatial awareness, sensory input, and herd-level logic that has evolved over millennia. The most visible survival tool is the shape of the herd itself. Wildebeest rarely travel in long, unbroken lines. Instead, the herd forms undulating fronts, often dozens of animals thick, that flex and contract with terrain and threats. When danger is sensed, such as lions trailing along the flanks, the edge of the herd tightens. Animals press inward, increasing density while pushing the vulnerable calves toward the center. It's a form of living geometry where position can mean survival. The logic is clear. Predators strike from the sides, so the sides must shift. In open fields, movement is not random. Zebras, though fewer in number than wildebeest, often lead the front. Their role is not accidental. Zebras possess better memories and stronger spatial orientation. While wildebeest rely heavily on scent and water cues, zebras remember trails, old water holes, and detours around obstacles. Their more upright heads and wider field of vision help detect danger earlier. In mixed herds, the cooperation benefits both species. Zebras guide, wildebeest follow, and together they saturate the air with hooves, scent, and visual confusion. But when panic sets in, strategy must adjust instantly. Predators exploit the moment when structure breaks down, during stampedes, river crossings, or when the herd becomes compressed against terrain. Crocodiles, for example, wait in ambush at riverbanks, not just for isolated individuals but for crowd behavior. When 1,000 wildebeest charge into a river, the chaos creates opportunity. Some are crushed, others stumble, and the weakest fall behind. Yet even here, surprising patterns emerge. Observational studies show that wildebeest often pause at a river's edge, even when predators are behind them. It's not indecision, it's calculation. They watch the current, they wait for others. And when the first one leaps, the rest follow not blindly, but with pressure distributed across the width of the bank, avoiding bottlenecks that lead to pile-ups. Those that do fall are not always the weakest. Sometimes the very middle of the herd becomes the most dangerous place. In a moment of hesitation, a single animal trying to retreat can trigger a compression wave. Others behind it push forward without seeing the cause, leading to injuries or drowning. But this phenomenon has a self-correcting element. Wildebeest that survive learn from it. Next time, they position themselves differently, closer to the edges, near high ground, or behind zebras. Collective memory builds from personal trauma. Predators are not passive observers of this dynamic. Lions, hyenas, and cheetahs all adapt their hunting strategies to herd behavior. Lions typically avoid frontal assaults. They flank, using the herd's own motion to funnel individuals toward ambush zones. Hyenas, more persistent and organized, exploit weakness from the rear, singling out the injured or aged during high-speed movement. Yet both species must interpret herd structure to succeed. A stampede is dangerous for them too. Cheetahs, though fast, rarely hunt during stampedes. They require calm, isolated targets. The frenzy of the herd is too unpredictable. Calves are often seen as the most vulnerable members of these herds, but they are not unprepared. Within days of birth, wildebeest calves can outrun a lion over short bursts. Their legs are disproportionately long, their balance already tuned by evolutionary demand. But more importantly, they are taught where to stand. Mothers position themselves between calves and likely threat vectors, like open flanks or riverbanks, and push them subtly through shoulder nudges and motion cues. In aerial footage, these patterns appear as invisible lanes forming and dissolving as the herd moves, a shifting structure that can't be seen from the ground. During dry season bottlenecks, when food and water become scarce, herds must compress into tighter spaces. It is here that hierarchy emerges. Dominant females take the lead in choosing paths. Males often flank, maintaining edge space and deterring opportunistic predators. But it's not a rigid social order. It's fluid, responsive to threat and opportunity. If a lioness kills a zebra on one flank, the herd simply shifts course, widening the opposite side and absorbing the spatial shock, like a wave adjusting to an obstacle. The true brilliance of herd survival lies in something scientists call self-organizing behavior. There is no leader, no command, and yet direction emerges. Spacing is regulated without measurement. Turning is coordinated without instruction. This synchronization allows for energy conservation, collective safety, and astonishing fluidity in motion. In mathematical modeling, these herds resemble living fractals, scalable, adaptable, and highly efficient systems where local actions generate global patterns. Gazelles offer a different perspective. While not long-range migrants like wildebeest, they form loose aggregations that also rely on coordinated escape. When threatened, a herd of Thompson's gazelles will scatter in a burst, but not randomly. Individuals angle away from the center in spirals or zigzags, disrupting the chase strategy of the predator. Their bounding motion, called stotting, is not just display, it signals fitness. A healthy gazelle leaps high and rhythmically, effectively communicating to a predator that it's not worth the energy to chase. Studies have shown that predators often abandon pursuit when stotting occurs, focusing on easier targets. Even in retreat, these prey species operate with precision. A herd of impala pursued by wild dogs will change direction not through commands but through a wave of body cues, head turns, muscle tension, acceleration, all read and mirrored by others. In this way, escape becomes a coordinated ballet of reflex and spatial awareness. Dogs attempt to separate individuals, but the herd works to stay clumped, twisting and folding back into itself like smoke dodging the wind. As the seasons shift and rain falls elsewhere, the herds begin to move again, southward, then westward, then back north. Their circuit is not random, and it's not passive. It is tuned to subtle changes in plant chemistry, soil moisture, and even distant lightning patterns. The herd senses before it sees. Grazing behavior alters. Walking tempo increases, a new destination forms. And through it all, the herd continues to function as a single living entity with thousands of legs and hundreds of eyes. Every step is a negotiation between hunger and fear, between the safety of the center and the freedom of the edges. The shape changes, the leaders rotate, the threats evolve, but the logic endures. Survival in the open plains is not about solitary strength. It is about being part of something larger, something dynamic, something constantly learning how to move just fast enough, just wide enough, just together enough to outsmart death. In the low morning light, the savanna breathes. A warm breeze slides across the plains, curling the tops of tall grasses into slow, rippling waves. The air carries the scent of dust, dry seed husks, and the distant musk of grazing animals. All seems calm on the surface. Birds call intermittently from thorn trees. Insects hum beneath the underbrush. The herds graze with heads low, ears flicking gently, unaware or pretending not to be aware that something is watching. This is not a forest hunt where branches shield and shadows dominate. In the grasslands, visibility is the first enemy. There is nowhere to hide in the conventional sense. Camouflage is limited to color and stillness. Every move must be calculated, timed, and executed with a precision that leaves no margin for error. The predators of this realm, servals, cheetahs, and lions, have evolved not only strength or speed, but a profound understanding of terrain. Here, hunting is not just a physical act. It is strategy played across the open board of the savanna. The serval, smallest of the trio, is the least noticed and yet the most efficient. With oversized ears and elongated legs, it moves with a strange elegance through the waist-high grass. Its coat, a mix of spots and stripes, breaks its outline against the dappled gold of the stalks. But it's not concealment alone that gives the serval its edge. It is sound, or rather, the ability to detect the faintest murmur beneath the earth. The serval stands still, ears rotating like satellite dishes. A vole shifting underground, a grasshopper landing nearby. When it hears its target, the cat leaps, not pounces, but springs vertically, sometimes over a meter into the air, landing directly onto its prey. This leap is not random. It is ballistic accuracy derived from data gathered invisibly. The serval does not chase. It intercepts. Cheetahs, by contrast, are built for speed. But that speed is merely the final act in a long and patient process. Long before the chase begins, the cheetah has already won or lost. Its lean body moves through the grass in absolute silence. The tail hovers horizontally for balance. Each paw falls where the last has softened the ground. Wind direction is constantly tested. If the air flows toward the prey, the cheetah shifts position. A downwind stalk is a wasted effort. When distance has been narrowed to within 100 meters, close, but not yet close enough, the cheetah flattens, tensing for the burst. But it doesn't always initiate. If the terrain is sloped, rocky, or if visibility opens too wide, the cheetah waits. Its spine is designed to coil and release like a whip, but only in conditions where success is probable. In the sprint, every second counts. Acceleration reaches 60 kilometers per hour in under 3 strides, but this intensity lasts less than 30 seconds. If the prey zigzags too early or heads for uneven ground, the cheetah will abandon the chase to avoid injury. Broken bones mean starvation. Here, the fastest predator on land must sometimes accept defeat to survive. Lions, the largest of the grassland hunters, rely not on speed or subtlety alone, but cooperation and psychological warfare. A pride on the hunt is not a singular force, but a coordinated unit, often splitting into flanking groups that circle grazing animals slowly and deliberately. While the main body of the pride lies in wait, hidden in dense patches or behind low termite mounds, 1 or 2 lionesses advance at an angle, using the sun or wind to mask their approach. These lions don't chase prematurely, they manipulate movement. Prey animals, sensing an approaching lion, shift direction instinctively, usually toward what appears to be open escape. What they don't know is that this escape corridor has already been calculated. Waiting lions crouch in ambush, perfectly still until the prey enters their narrow strike zone. This tactic requires patience and an understanding of prey behavior that is learned over years. Young lions fail frequently. Older ones succeed because they read the herd's reactions before they happen. What ties these predators together, beyond fur and claws, is their shared reliance on environmental cues. Every hunt is a reading of the landscape. A gust of wind can destroy hours of careful positioning. A shift in light can reveal what was hidden. Grass height, soil moisture, and even insect noise all feed into the decision-making process. A lion might approach through a burned patch where the lack of grass shortens cover, but it may also do so because the bare ground muffles footfall. A cheetah might select a hunting site where herds must pass through a narrow opening between thorn bush and marsh, restricting escape options. Prey animals are not passive actors in this game. They too adapt. Wildebeest cluster when lions are near, forming a tighter unit that's harder to break. Impalas zigzag not just to evade, but to trigger a chase response too early, forcing cheetahs to abandon pursuit. Zebras, with their sharp hooves and strong social bonds, often form defensive circles at night, the outer animals facing outward, alert and ready to bolt. And yet, no system is perfect. Even the best strategies fail under pressure. A lion mistiming its ambush might trigger a full herd stampede that tramples the cover. A cheetah might cramp mid-sprint, a result of lactic acid buildup in its specialized muscle system. A serval might misjudge a leap, landing an inch too short and giving away its position. The margin for success is never generous. In the open, any mistake is exposed immediately. Each of these hunters must also compete with one another, not directly, but through ecological tension. A lion pride dominates territory, but if prey grows scarce or migrates, cheetahs and servals must venture into riskier zones. Cheetahs are often bullied off kills by hyenas or lions, forced to abandon fresh prey only minutes after a successful hunt. Servals, being small and solitary, rely on stealth not just to catch food but to keep it. The wind changes, the sun climbs. The herd begins to move again, a slow shift of muscle and motion across the grass. Predators watch from shade, adjusting tactics, retreating if needed. This is not a place where brute force alone determines the outcome. Success depends on patience, terrain, understanding prey behavior, and exploiting the smallest moments of hesitation. In the grasslands, hunters are not reckless. They are students of the environment, each step taken with awareness, each pause a calculation. Their silence is not absence, it is the quiet accumulation of sensory input, waiting for the precise second when movement becomes strike. And when that moment comes, the plains erupt, briefly and violently, before falling silent once more. The tall grass sways again, as if nothing happened. But something always has. As the sun dips below the savanna's distant rim, the day relinquishes its grip. What was golden and sun-soaked a moment ago turns grey and indistinct. The air, once dry and hot, begins to cool quickly. Insects emerge from their burrows. A thin veil of mist rises from hollows where heat clung to the earth. The landscape, so open and legible in the daylight, begins to vanish into layers of shadow. But this fading visibility doesn't bring stillness. It triggers a transformation. The night on the grasslands is not empty, it's simply rewritten. Almost every role shifts. Predators, once cautious and patient, become bold and vocal. Prey, which once relied on vision and group coordination, must now navigate by smell, sound, and instinct. Some creatures retreat into safety, while others emerge for the first time, blinking into darkness that, for them, is as familiar as midday. Survival in this inverted world belongs not to the strong or the fast, but to the adapted. The first signals of the night's takeover are barely audible. A distant whooping call rises, a spotted hyena advertising its presence or testing territory lines. The call travels farther in cooler night air, echoing over kilometers. A few beats later, an answering call returns from the south. Somewhere in between, a third voice interjects. The dialogue may sound eerie to human ears, but to hyenas, it's information-rich. Each tone conveys rank, mood, direction, and distance. This vocal coordination is the nervous system of their clan. It allows them to cover vast areas with minimal energy wasted on confusion. While lions often rest deeper into the night, conserving energy for precise hunting windows, hyenas waste little time. They are already on the move, ears twitching, noses scanning for the scent of fresh blood or weakness. Contrary to their scavenger stereotype, hyenas are among the most successful nocturnal hunters in the ecosystem. Their kills outnumber those of lions in many regions. Pack cooperation, endurance, and a high tolerance for chaos give them an edge when precision breaks down. Elsewhere, aardvarks begin their solitary patrols. Broad-shouldered and barrel-bodied, they waddle through the darkness with surprising silence, using their powerful claws to dig rapidly into termite mounds that only hours ago pulsed with heat. Termites, thermoregulated and nocturnally active, emerge in huge numbers at night. Some climb grass stalks and open soil vents to release heat. Others form living bridges between foraging zones. The aardvark, with a tongue that can extend over 30 centimeters and a nose capable of detecting a single scent thread across 10 meters, works with slow certainty. Dig, sniff, lick, dig, sniff, lick. Its world is not about confrontation but accumulation, of calories, of water, of survival hours logged underground and in shadow. The smaller residents of the night also begin to stir. Bush babies leap from branch to branch, their enormous forward-facing eyes glowing faintly when caught by reflected light. Their calls, sharp, almost bird-like, pierce the quiet. They feed on insects and tree sap, darting in and out of visibility, too fast for most predators to target. Owls respond to this rising tide of movement, gliding low with near-total silence. Their wing feathers evolve to muffle turbulence. The grass rustles slightly. A rodent scurries toward shelter. And then, silence. The owl has landed. Whether the strike succeeded or not is difficult to tell. Either way, it vanishes again into the air, wings unfurling like a whisper. Night also redraws the social lines between species. Elephants, largely diurnal in temperate zones, often shift to nighttime activity in hotter regions. The cool air lets them forage and travel longer without overheating. Matriarchs lead herds along well-worn moonlit paths, using memory rather than sight to navigate. They touch trunks to communicate direction and reassurance. On some nights, they reach isolated waterholes that would be too risky to approach by daylight, when competition and predators make open water a battlefield. At night, the risks are different, less visible, more scattered, but manageable for those who can hear well and remain cohesive. What's striking in the nocturnal world is how strategy shifts from line-of-sight logic to spatial reasoning. In the dark, the notion of hiding becomes less about physical barriers and more about silence, scent masking, and stillness. A jackal pair, hunting for insects or rodent nests, keeps to the low ridges and bush-lined ditches, their silhouettes broken not by vegetation, but by the darkness itself. They listen. Movement alerts them before any shape becomes clear. Even vision adapts to the dark. While most herbivores retreat into tighter groups for protection after sundown, those that continue feeding, like giraffes or hartebeests, rely on enhanced night vision and acute hearing. Their eyes have more rod cells than humans, allowing them to detect contrast better in low light. But even then, confidence wanes. Every glance becomes a scan. Every ear twitch is a calculation. Movement slows, not from fatigue, but from uncertainty. One of the most dramatic behavioral reversals occurs with the use of vocalization. By day, prey animals prefer quiet. Noise draws attention. But at night, sound is often safer than silence. Zebras will bray or snort to keep herd members oriented. Wildebeest call out softly to calves. Even gazelles, normally quiet, use low grunts to maintain contact in darkness. Communication reduces confusion. Confusion breeds separation. And separation at night is nearly always fatal. Some of the savanna's most specialized nocturnal players are nearly invisible. The bat-eared fox, for example, uses its enormous ears not to cool off, but to detect the faint scratching of beetles and termites underground. It can hear larval movement under the surface and pinpoint the source with remarkable accuracy. Its diet is almost entirely insect-based, and its social system is one of the few among canids where the male takes the dominant parental role. While the female forages, the male guards the den and pups, behavior that ensures survival in a niche few competitors occupy. But not all creatures of the night are subtle. Some announce themselves boldly, like the African nightjar. Its call is unmissable, a mechanical churring sound that repeats rhythmically for long minutes. This isn't a warning or alarm, it's courtship. In the dark, where visibility is limited, sound becomes the dominant form of display. Males claim territory by volume and endurance, daring rivals to approach and mates to listen. The night, while dangerous, is also when love songs travel farthest. And then there are those who come only once the night deepens. Predators that waited all day for heat to fade. Leopards descending from rocky outcrops. Genets slinking along tree limbs. Civets pacing the edge of camps. Their appearance is fleeting. Their tracks, if any, are found only at dawn. By midnight, the savanna is a different world. The air smells richer. Grass oils released by cool temperatures, soil stirred by insects, spoor laid by traveling animals. It is quieter in a way, yet paradoxically more alive. Every sound has weight, every step is a risk. And yet this is not a world of constant violence. Most of the night is spent moving, feeding, foraging. The attacks are brief, the kills rare, the pacing measured. Death is present, but so is restraint. For many animals, the dark is simply the preferred shift. Cooler, quieter, less congested. The grasslands do not rest when the sun vanishes. They simply switch. At first light, the shapes in the distance begin to take form again. Calls fade. Some creatures retreat into dens and hollows, while others rise to begin their day. But the traces of the night remain. Prints along the riverbank, a torn feather near the bush, a mound dug open. The savanna has passed through its other life, its hidden phase, and emerged once again into the visible. But the silence never truly left. It only moved with the dark. The grasslands, wide and seemingly unbounded, give the illusion of peace. From above, the savanna stretches without end, a sunlit mosaic of golden grass, snaking rivers, and scattered acacias. But on the ground, that openness is an illusion. Every stretch of land, every shaded tree, every muddy watering hole is claimed. Invisible lines crisscross the plains, lines that are patrolled, contested, and if necessary, defended with force. Territory here is not a luxury. It is the framework of survival. For predators, boundaries define more than hunting ranges. They dictate mating rights, social hierarchy, and future survival. A lion pride's territory, for example, may cover over 250 square kilometers. It is patrolled in sections by different members, typically lionesses during routine movements, and males when threats loom. The males, usually brothers or close kin, mark trees with scent, roar in unison at dusk, and patrol border paths worn by generations of patrols. These signals serve dual purposes: to warn outsiders and to reassure the pride itself that their world is intact. But even with such efforts, borders are constantly tested. Rogue males, often younger, leaner, and driven by the urgency of reproduction, move along the edges, listening for vocal gaps or sniffing for weakened scent marks. When they detect a lapse, they may move in silently, bypassing the pride's core to seek out females. If they are discovered too early, the result is a brutal expulsion. But if they succeed, the consequences are far more severe. Infanticide is common during takeovers. New males kill the cubs of previous leaders to bring the lionesses back into estrus quickly. This behavior, while shocking to human eyes, is an evolutionary shortcut to gene propagation. A pride takeover is not just a fight, it's a reset of the genetic clock. Among herbivores, territory plays out differently, but with equal intensity. Elephants, the undisputed giants of the grasslands, don't establish static territories like lions. Instead, they dominate routes. These are migration corridors, long, invisible trails that link feeding grounds, mineral-rich soils, and water sources. Older matriarchs know these routes with astonishing accuracy, guiding herds through hundreds of kilometers of changing terrain. But routes are only as useful as their safety. When droughts shrink watering holes or human encroachment blocks migration paths, conflict becomes inevitable. When two elephant herds converge on the same shrinking water source, the standoff is not always immediate. First comes the assessment: trunk lifts, ear flares, low-frequency rumbles. Information is exchanged through the air and the ground, as much felt through feet as heard. If the resource is large enough, herds may share it, tolerating one another with caution. But when water is scarce, the larger herd, or the one led by the most experienced matriarch, may force the other out. This can happen without violence, through posture and presence alone. But when youth from either side ignore subtle signals, skirmishes break out. These are rarely fatal, but tusks clash, trumpets echo, and hierarchies are reinforced. Territorial behavior becomes even more volatile when it intersects with breeding. During the dry season, many species time their mating rituals with the brief abundance of greenery after the first rains. For species like topi or impala, males establish small central territories in areas where females are likely to pass. These temporary domains are defended with astonishing commitment, chasing away rivals, posturing with erect necks and stomping hooves, and occasionally engaging in horned combat that leaves both parties bloodied. Interestingly, in some species, the most dominant males do not always hold the center. In topi leks, for example, males on the edge of the territory often mate more frequently. Females, wary of harassment and drawn to less congested spots, sometimes seek out peripheral males. This subtle inversion of mating success shows that territory, while important, is not always about dominance. It's about context, perception, and timing. For smaller predators like jackals or bat-eared foxes, territory is a matter of reproductive success and pup safety. Jackals, typically seen in pairs, maintain long-term monogamous bonds and fiercely defend their home ranges. These ranges may only be a few square kilometers, but they are patrolled multiple times a day. Scent marking, vocal duets, and physical chases keep rivals out. When neighboring pairs clash, the encounters can be shockingly violent, especially when young are involved. In some cases, dominant pairs will kill the pups of rivals to reduce competition, a grim reflection of how tight margins of survival can be. Cheetahs, though solitary hunters, also navigate a territorial maze, particularly males, who may form coalitions to secure access to key hunting grounds or female territories. These coalitions can dominate open clearings where prey is predictable. But because cheetahs lack the raw fighting strength of lions or leopards, their disputes are more calculated. Most confrontations are settled through vocalization, scent marking, and visual displays. Only when rivals are evenly matched do they escalate, and even then, they rely more on bluffing than bloodshed. For cheetahs, injury equals death. Territory is vital, but not worth crippling over. One of the more understated territorial dramas belongs to birds. Ground-dwelling species like bustards or lapwings may not cover huge distances, but they stake out precise breeding and feeding zones. Males use calls, postures, and aerial displays to maintain space. Their territories are often defended from both their own species and others. Ostriches, for instance, will chase away jackals or antelope if they approach nests. The commitment to a small patch of grass becomes obsessive when the next generation's survival depends on it. But perhaps the most unpredictable territorial conflicts come not from direct clashes, but from collapse. When rainfall patterns shift and seasonal wetlands fail to form, entire layers of the food web buckle. Waterbirds abandon nesting grounds, frogs do not call, insects disperse or die off. Grazers gather at the few remaining waterholes, straining every relationship. Lions move farther than normal, hyenas take bigger risks, and herbivores begin feeding closer to dangerous terrain simply because it's the only greenery left. Here, territory dissolves into triage. The map of control blurs and every animal from buffalo to warthog must improvise or perish. And yet, even in the most violent takeovers or tense standoffs, some form of regulation always emerges. Territory in the grasslands is not enforced by fences or monuments. It is shaped by experience, memory, display, and deterrence. Most battles are won without being fought. The growl at a distance, the scent trail at a boundary, the raised tail of a dominant male, all are messages that mean the same thing. Not here. In a world where drought can rewrite the landscape overnight, and survival depends on access to food, water, mates, and shelter, territorial control is both ancient and fragile. It must be asserted constantly, but challenged carefully. Every creature on the savanna walks a tightrope between holding ground and risking everything to keep it. What appears as vast openness is, in reality, a layered grid of invisible power lines, negotiated daily, reinforced seasonally, and rewritten by each generation. From lions roaring under a moonlit sky to jackals weaving through acacia shadows, the grasslands are not just a place of passage. They are a chessboard of power plays, whispered warnings, and silent wars where the stakes are never less than life itself. The morning sun climbs over the horizon with quiet indifference, washing the plains in soft amber light. The grass is still wet with dew, glistening under the early heat. Everything smells fresh, earth turned by hooves, crushed wildflowers, the damp tang of overnight mist. But underneath the serenity, something urgent pulses. Beneath tufts of grass, in shallow depressions hidden only by shadow and instinct, something small and fragile begins to stir. Across the savanna, life is arriving into a world that has little patience for its weakness. In the grasslands, birth is not a private moment. It happens out in the open, without walls or shelter, without pause in the endless cycle of predator and prey. For prey animals especially, wildebeest, impala, gazelles, warthogs, there is no safe nursery. Every new life is a target the moment it draws its first breath, and so evolution has shaped birth into an act of pure efficiency. Mothers give birth fast, recover faster, and disappear if they must, leaving the newborn to figure out its first steps in a landscape where the scent of blood travels quickly and doesn't go unnoticed. The wildebeest, central actors in the Great Migration drama, are masters of timing. Around 500,000 calves are born within a 3-week window each year in the southern Serengeti. This isn't accidental. It's synchronized for survival. When hundreds of thousands of calves hit the ground almost simultaneously, predators, lions, hyenas, jackals, can only claim a fraction. The saturation overwhelms the system. This evolutionary tactic, known as predator swamping, relies on numbers to protect the vulnerable. In a strange twist, individual calves are expendable, but the group as a whole survives because the predators simply can't keep up. A wildebeest birth happens in minutes. The mother separates slightly from the herd, giving herself a few meters of solitude, but not isolation. Remaining near the group offers cover. She gives birth standing, the calf landing hard in the dust with a wet thud. Within 5 minutes, it's attempting to stand. Within 15, it's walking. In under an hour, it can run. Not gracefully, but fast enough to follow the herd. The placenta is eaten or buried, not for nutrition, but to erase the scent. Anything left behind becomes a flag for scavengers. Impalas and gazelles follow similar strategies, though their young are often hidden rather than immediately mobile. A female impala gives birth in silence, quickly licking the newborn clean to remove scent and help blood circulation. Then she leaves. The fawn, still trembling, instinctively lowers itself into the grass and remains still. This hiding phase may last for days. The mother returns briefly to nurse, always cautious, always listening. She changes locations between visits, sometimes faking her trail to mislead trackers. The fawn must stay absolutely motionless. A single twitch can draw attention. Studies have shown that even the flicking of an ear can trigger an attack from a predator who otherwise might not have noticed. Warthogs take an entirely different approach. Before giving birth, a female, called a sow, finds or reclaims an old aardvark burrow. This underground chamber becomes the birthing den, and she may seal the entrance from the inside for several days after delivering her litter. When the piglets are finally old enough to emerge, they are still small, unsteady, and irresistible to predators. But warthogs don't rely on stealth. They rely on speed and aggression. A mother warthog, despite her comical posture and twitching tail, will charge predators at full speed, tusks out, if her young are threatened. Few animals are willing to risk a goring just to claim a piglet. Warthog families have been observed chasing off jackals, baboons, and even cheetahs when defending their burrow's mouth. Not all grassland births are so mobile. Zebras fall year-round, but the dry season often sees a slight peak. A newborn foal is larger than a gazelle calf, and though it too can stand and run within hours, its bond to the mother is more intense. The first hours are spent memorizing her scent, her pattern, her voice. In a sea of stripes, identification becomes critical. A foal that follows the wrong female risks starvation or abandonment. And unlike some antelope calves, zebra foals stay with their mothers rather than hiding. Their defense is not disappearance, but group cohesion. The harem, a small band led by a dominant stallion, moves together, kicking at threats and keeping weaker members near the center. Giraffes, those towering figures of the open plains, face their own peculiar birth challenges. A giraffe gives birth standing. The calf drops over 6 feet to the ground, landing with enough force to break bones in a smaller creature. But this jolt serves a purpose. It shocks the newborn system into rapid activation. The fall breaks the amniotic sac, stimulates breathing, and sometimes even severs the umbilical cord. Within an hour, the calf is up, wobbling on legs longer than most adult antelope. Predators target giraffe calves frequently, especially lions and hyenas, but the mothers are formidable defenders. A giraffe's kick can crush a lion's skull. Still, the calves remain the most vulnerable age class. Many will not see their first birthday. Across all species, the common theme is this: birth is timed with danger in mind. Many grassland species synchronize not just with each other, but with environmental cues. Rainfall, grass growth, insect emergence, all are calculated into the reproductive calendar. The idea is to align birth with abundance, when cover is thick and food is easy to digest. Even the quality of milk improves with access to greener vegetation. A mother's body is a responsive system, adapting to the rhythms of the land. If the rains fail, births drop. If the grasses are too short, predator activity increases, and birth sites are abandoned altogether. What often goes unnoticed is how much behavior in the adult population is shaped by the presence of young. Herds move slower, stop more frequently, and avoid high-risk areas when calves are present. Predator strategies shift too. Lions may follow calving herds more closely, focusing on the stragglers. Hyenas expand their patrols to take advantage of weakened mothers or left-behind fawns. Even birds adjust. Raptors scan lower, and carrion birds anticipate higher turnover. But not all threats come from predators. The environment itself tests newborns relentlessly. A sudden storm can chill a calf to fatal hypothermia. Insects can blind, infect, or overwhelm those too weak to swat them away. Parasites thrive on the naive immune systems of the young. In a landscape without vet care, every infection, every injury is a roll of the evolutionary dice. And so, the strategies that seem cold or mechanical, abandoning a sick calf, moving on without a lagging foal, are not cruel. They are survival calculus in a system that gives little room for error. Yet despite these odds, the plains are full of youth. Calves stumble forward, learning which grasses to eat and when to lie down. Young warthogs chase each other in circles, tails upright like little flags. Fawns peer from hiding places with wide, blinking eyes. The savanna pulses with new life precisely because its strategies are so unforgiving. The constant pressure sculpts behavior, physiology, and timing into a system that, against all odds, produces the next generation. In this world, birth is not the beginning of innocence, it is the first test. And for every newborn that rises from the grass, trembling but alive, it is a test passed, however briefly. Because in the open plains, there is no shelter from the reality of nature. only the speed to stand, the sense to hide, or the strength to protect. The wind rolls low across the grasslands, steady and soft, carrying with it the sense of dust, dung, and distant rain. The air is warm, but not oppressive. The light is soft, diffused through thin clouds that stretch like gauze across the open sky. Below, the land seems empty at first glance, an unbroken expanse of golden stalks and ochre soil, but look longer and patterns begin to emerge. A trail of flattened grass curves along a gentle ridge, almost lost to time, then reappears in a shallow valley. Hoofprints, faint and half-filled by wind-blown sand, suggest recent movement. Here, survival isn't defined by sudden action or dramatic events. It is slow, deliberate, and often invisible. This is the domain of the long game. In the open plains, where resources are seasonal and predators always near, intelligence is not just the ability to respond quickly, it's the ability to remember. Across the African savannas, memory carves invisible paths into the land. Generations of animals follow migratory routes not marked by signposts, but imprinted in instinct and reinforced by ancestral experience. These routes do not always follow the shortest distance. They follow water, safety, mineral licks, and historical knowledge passed not through words, but through behavior. Among the most extraordinary holders of this memory are elephants. A matriarch leads her herd not by dominance, but by experience. Her knowledge, accumulated over decades, includes the locations of waterholes that have not been visited in years, dry season refuges hidden behind thorn-covered ridges, and patches of vegetation that recover faster after fire or drought. She remembers which areas are dangerous, where lions once ambushed calves, or where humans blocked a corridor. Her decisions, made without haste or spectacle, shape the fate of every member in her group. In times of scarcity, when rains fail and the land cracks underfoot, her memory becomes the herd's most vital resource. Scientific studies have shown that elephant herds led by older matriarchs have higher survival rates during droughts. They avoid the panic that affects younger groups. They do not wander aimlessly. Instead, they pivot toward ancient destinations that the youngest among them have never seen. These places are often hundreds of kilometers away, unguessed by even modern GPS, but known through generations of slow migration. In this sense, elephants are not just large, they are deeply rooted. Their movements a blend of geography and time. Zebras, while not as long-lived, play a surprisingly critical role in migration dynamics. In mixed species herds, which include wildebeest, gazelles, and eland, zebras often take the lead. Their eyesight is exceptional. They're more alert to distant threats, and unlike wildebeest, who often rely on scent and rainfall cues, zebras remember specific landscapes. They navigate bottlenecks, recognize key crossing points at rivers, and initiate detours around dense predator zones. When riverbanks erode or flash floods make traditional paths dangerous, it is often a zebra that finds the new route, and the rest follow. This cross-species cooperation is not built on affection but efficiency. Zebras graze the taller, coarser grasses, clearing a path for wildebeest to feed on the fresher shoots below. Gazelles, more selective and nimble, move in later, nibbling at the remaining nutrient-rich tips. The sequence forms a tiered system, one that ensures maximum extraction from the land while reducing interspecies competition. But for this cooperation to function, the migratory rhythm must hold. Timing is everything. A delay of just a few weeks, due to poor rainfall or human interference, can unravel the order. Calving may miss the grass peak. Calves may be born during river crossings or exposed to predators before they can run. The long game depends on precision, not luck. Rainfall, though critical, is not a reliable guide. In the grasslands, it is patchy, erratic, and often misleading. A thunderstorm in the east may turn the soil to mush while leaving the western ridges bone dry. Some animals gamble on the first green shoots, only to find them sparse and bitter. Others wait too long and arrive after the best forage has been stripped. Success, then, depends not just on following the rain, but on interpreting it, knowing which clouds matter and which are passing noise. Older females among many grazing species seem to make these decisions more accurately. In buffalo herds, matriarchs choose routes that avoid parasitic hotspots or long-exploited feeding grounds. In springbok, dominant females lead groups to salt pans when mineral levels drop. Even warthogs, often seen as chaotic feeders, return to the same burrow systems year after year, teaching piglets the layout of safe ground long before they understand why it matters. Some legacies are etched not in memory, but in land. Trails formed by repeated hooffall become game paths, compacted and hardened by years of use. These paths shape vegetation growth, water runoff, even soil erosion. Termites follow them, then birds follow termites. Predators wait alongside them. A narrow corridor between two thickets becomes a funnel for migration, and so a regular hunting ground for lions and hyenas. These are not random movements. They are consequences of past decisions, repeated so often that they rewire the ecosystem. But the long game is not just about memory, it's about endurance. Grassland species do not measure success by days survived, but by lineage continued. Wildebeest migrations, spanning up to 1,600 kilometers annually, are fueled by more than instinct. They are fine-tuned loops of birth, death, replenishment, and return. The fact that so many complete the journey year after year, despite the gauntlet of predators, disease, and exhaustion, is a testament to a system that functions only when time is allowed to shape behavior. Yet this system is increasingly strained. Fences, both physical and invisible, interrupt traditional corridors. Human settlements, roads, and agriculture fragment what was once seamless. Elephants find themselves unable to reach remembered waterholes. Zebras are funneled into risky crossings. Wildebeest herds splinter, their timing disrupted by new barriers. The ancient game paths begin to fade, overwritten not by drought or predators, but by policy and steel. And still, some persist. Herds adjust, relearn, reroute. Young elephants remember only part of the old maps, but they innovate under pressure. Prides shift their ranges. Jackals, ever opportunistic, fill the gaps left behind. Grasslands themselves recover slowly, but when fire and rain align, they pulse with regrowth. The long game allows for setbacks. It tolerates loss, even collapse. What it does not tolerate is the absence of memory, the refusal to observe patterns, or the insistence that the present alone is what matters. In the final light of day, a long line of animals crests the horizon. Dust rises behind them, soft and coppery. At the front, a zebra pauses, ears forward, nostrils flared. Somewhere far ahead lies water, still out of sight but not forgotten. Behind her, wildebeest grunt and push forward. Calves stumble, regain footing. The grass parts as the column moves onward, not in haste but with purpose. They are not following a map, they are following time. The grasslands are shaped not just by teeth and hooves, but by what is passed on: roots, habits, decisions, mistakes. The survivors are not only those who run fastest or hide best, but those who remember where to go, when to move, and how to return. On a continent where change is constant, it is memory that carves permanence. And in the end, it is legacy, measured not in years but in migrations completed, that keeps the wild alive.